Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, child abuse prevention and parenting support, plus we'll talk a little bit about cyber charter schools. We'll do all of that after the break.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Welcome back to the program. Well, in the last 6 months or so, there has been a lot of news coming out of Harrisburg and elsewhere about child abuse. Some of this comes in the wake of the Jerry Sandusky child abuse scandal. Joining me is to chat about that and some reforms that have been done, Angela Liddle. She's the CEO, president of the Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance, and Tina Phillips. She directs training for the aforementioned organization. I think I got that right, ladies, right?
Okay, absolutely.
All right, Tina, let's start with you. We're in the, and I'm going to get off of the main subject for a minute and talk about the budget and the effect that the lack of a budget at this point, as we tape, has on kids, on children. Give us your take on how long this can go on and what effects it could have.
Well, as everybody knows, most services are delivered through the nonprofit sector.
Yeah.
None of the nonprofits are sitting in very strong financial positions. So the vast majority are, like ours, will be operating on a line of credit. That obviously has an impact. But I think the greater issue that we need to address in that is that many of the services that are provided to kids who are connected to the child welfare system, kids who are in foster care placement, they're there because they weren't safe in their families, and sometimes the community wasn't safe with them being there. So there's good reason they're placed there. The state is then responsible, and yet their services, the feeding, the clothing, the payments for all of that, are not listed as an essential service to be provided during this budget impasse. Yeah,
and you've put a human face on it. We've been talking, throughout the last month or so about nonprofits are going to be affected by this at some point. And what I like about this is you put a face on it. This has to do with our kids, our children.
It's our kids.
Yeah.
So we really urge, can't say it strongly enough.
Get it done, right?
We urge get it done, but more than that, send a message. We've all worked so hard. Legislators, governor's office, administrations, and advocates. We've worked so hard the last few years to make kids more of a priority. It sends a strong message that we're not paying these services right now.
Okay, let's go. Jerry Sandusky, everyone's horrified by all of this. What's the biggest change or two that has taken place in Pennsylvania since that scandal? I'll call it a scandal.
Well, some of the biggest changes, Terry, have been around the definitions of child abuse. We've essentially lowered the threshold for what could be considered substantiated child abuse. So what that means is that more cases will be able to be substantiated and we'll better be able to protect kids. We've increased, or enumerated rather, who is a mandated reporter, and the big change there is now that volunteers are considered mandated reporters.
Yeah, you used an important terminology here that most of us were unfamiliar with until this debate. Mandated reporter. Change there in who's mandated to report. Tell me who.
Well, volunteers now, they were never considered mandated reporters before. So your Little League coaches, Girl Scout leaders, Boy Scout leaders, you have this whole community of people who help kids that don't know that they are mandated reporters and probably aren't aware of what they need to do.
So there are legal consequences if you're a mandated reporter and you see or think you have some evidence that there's some child abuse, right?
Yeah, that's really, again, another piece of change to our Child Protective Services law since December 31st of 2014. That's really a very positive step in the right direction for kids. Now, if you are a mandated reporter and you believe that a child is being abused and you fail to report that, we've increased the penalties for failure to report. In lots of ways, when we look at all these amendments, 23 and a few more that have followed in the past few weeks, what we're really saying is we're trying to close the loopholes. We're trying to really kind of put our money where our mouth is about protecting Pennsylvania's kids. And in all of that, we're really changing the culture. We're saying the protection and safety of kids is really something that Pennsylvania is serious about.
And that gets to this question. These are having an effect, correct? These changes, you're beginning to see changes in what I'll call the culture. Is that correct?
I think we're really beginning to see changes in awareness. I think later down the road we'll have data to show if things are working or not. But based on the phone calls I'm getting every day from volunteer groups, from religious organizations, there's a much bigger awareness of people's responsibility and about child abuse.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, these changes have not been without their controversy, and we're going to chat about that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back. Angela Liddle and Tina Phillips from the Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance join me. We're talking about the changes that have gone on in the wake of the Jerry Sandusky scandal to protect our kids. All right, I'll start with you. It's not without controversy, right? It's not without some over the background checks and is it intrusion? Is big government intruding? And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, we hear that frequently from callers. Is it an intrusion? We're talking about safety of kids.
Yeah.
And we're talking about keeping known perpetrators away from kids, away from programs and activities and services, because we know that's where they're drawn. So is it inconvenient? It may be, but why should we put adults' convenience above the safety of kids?
Yeah, you know what's sort of interesting? Maybe it's me, and this is sort of anecdotal. I pick up a newspaper now, and given what we all do, we read a lot of newspapers. And I see more people being prosecuted than ever and being convicted. Now, I'm not convicting anybody who's innocent, don't get me wrong about it. I'm just saying, when I look at this and I'm sort of stunned, I mean, I don't remember, Angela, ever seeing this kind of news about it.
You haven't, Terry. You raise a great point. The issue is we are incrementally changing the culture in Pennsylvania, where the protection of children is more important than the convenience of individuals or institutions. A great point. You know, people are not all thrilled about the clearances. It's a hassle sometimes to get them. You have to wait, you have to whatever. There are costs with everything. And to have good, solid child protection, it's not just getting clearances. It's also getting good, solid training.
Right.
It's also having agencies and institutions and places of higher education with good, solid policies and practices. So we have to look at it as a package. And most folks, on some level, are going to have just a slight amount of inconvenience. So we have to say to ourselves, how serious are we about the protection of our kids?
Now, is this a question of money? There's now the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency. Josh Shapiro, Montgomery County Commissioner, used to be a state house member, chairs it. There are grants now available. How does that process work? What are the grants for? Go ahead, whichever one of you.
Well, they've already released requests for proposals with some of the money related to services for victims and programs that would be prevention-oriented. Our understanding is there's another round of grants that will be, grant dollars that will be released. They'll put out requests for proposals in the fall, and that will be targeted to education. So again,
so does that mean schools and who's eligible in a sense? Do you know yet, or are you still working on it? Who can apply?
We have not seen that yet. I think that it will be agencies like Pennsylvania Family Support Alliance who can apply, who are providing training and have a long history of doing that for mandated reporters. But again, the key is to look at using whatever resources we have to get the messages out that are very crisp and clear that help prepare folks, from parents to professionals to community members, how to play a role in keeping children safe.
All right, if you're going to get this money, if you want to apply, what are you going to say about how effective you've been? Right? What have you done? I mean, that's an interesting question. What have you done to lower child abuse incidences?
Well, I think it's important to have outcome measures.
Make your case, right? You get a chance
it's important to have outcome
case.
measures in place.
Yeah.
And our training has been research evaluated by Johns Hopkins, and it's been proven that people they're more comfortable after the training making a report, because the truth is, we all say, well, I would have, or I should have, they should have this, but there are barriers to making a report. Yeah. And training needs to include and discuss what those barriers are, in addition to giving people the knowledge of what to do.
Yeah, I suspect that there's been a lot of that going on over the course of centuries in families that just weren't reported, that kids just live with it. And more and more, I think folks are, coming forward and at least willing to talk about it much later in life. Am I right?
You raise a great point.
That point?
You raise a great point, Terry. The reality is the best step in solid child protection is positive, good parenting. Yeah. Not everybody's going to do that. So you have to have professionals who interact with kids prepared to know what to do and how to identify it and how to report. We linked with your friends at Franklin and Marshall last year, and we did a statewide research project. We learned that professionals were 5 times more likely to report suspected child abuse if they had training and felt confident in what they were supposed to do.
They have to know what steps to make. They have to know what reprisals there are. They have to know, am I right, what you're all getting into when you do this, right?
And they need to understand what happens after the report is made, too, so they have increased confidence in the child welfare system.
All right, last question before I let you go. It seems like, given the fact that a lot of it, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is sort of in the family, how do you stop it? I mean, maybe we can't ever stop all of it, right? But
we're likely not going to stop all of it. What we have to do is hold ourselves to a high level of accountability with how we treat children and others, and then hold each other to a level of accountability. Our General Assembly, Governor's administration has taken strong steps in the last few years to do some things that help put that in place. But now it's really up to each person. Okay. We have to decide what's okay and what isn't. Okay.
Hey, look, this is a wonderful update. I'm glad we could get into this topic. It's an important one. All right, we're going to take a look at cyber charter schools. We'll check in and see the progress at least one of them is making and get a sense about where they're going. We'll do that after this commercial break.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacoalalliance.com.
Well, Mary Steffey, she's the board president with Agora Cyber Charter School, joins me, and we're going to chat a little bit about cyber charter schools. Let me start with this, Mary. There's a lot in there. Cyber charter schools. What cyber school? Explain. All online? Is that the Is that the deal?
Well, it's a lot of it is online. We do have a learning center in Philadelphia, but there are also face-to-face events. But the majority of the learning does happen online. So every family is sent a computer, they're sent an internet reimbursement. Every child has their own laptop, so they get online. And so, for example, at 9 o'clock they may have math, at 10 o'clock they may have science, 11
I get it.
Yeah.
So the curriculum would be in segments, just as if you were in a regular classroom in a public school.
Actually, you
let's
are
say.
you have a class set up. You
have a class
with kids,
set up. Okay.
with other kids.
So now when we talk cyber, then we talk about charter schools. Now, are the cyber charter schools approved by the state, approved by the local school district? Administratively, how does that work? So if somebody wanted to, go ahead.
We're a public school.
You're a public school.
The same as any other public school in the state, but we are a school of choice. So there's a bill in Pennsylvania that allows for charter schools and allows for cyber charter schools. So we are overseen by PDE, the same as any other school.
Department of Education in the state. That's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. And Agora currently serves 10,300 kids from all the way across the state. We have a full community of education, so the kids, as I said, they log into class. They may have, a whole group of kids in the same class with them on a daily basis. They get together for outings to have socialization with those kids. They have. So it is an option, a phenomenal option for kids many of our kids come to us because they didn't do well in the brick and mortar environment. Kids come to us because they've been failed by failing schools. Some kids come to us because of medical issues. Some kids come to us because they are already pursuing careers. And some kids come to us because they're advanced learners. So we, 2 or 3 years ago, our top graduate graduated at 14 and had a program waiting for him at Carnegie Mellon. He's now finishing his master's at 17, and he still doesn't drive a car, but...
So charter schools then are approved by the Department of Education. Do you have any relationship with this local school district at all? You don't need... They don't create you, in other words, right? Correct?
Correct.
But they do create charter schools. Some charter schools are created by school districts. Just trying to get all this straight.
There is at least one cyber that was created by a district. Created by a school district.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about how your funding model works.
Okay.
Who pays for it, for a child to attend a cyber charter schools? Parents, is there a relationship between the school district for funding? Is there a relationship with the state? So we've got a bunch of possibilities here.
Well, there is, every state has as you know, the funding formula statewide is broken.
Right.
So, but there is a state amount there is an amount that each district allocates per student. And then, so if, for example, you come from whatever district, they then take off the top between 25 and 30% of that for their brick and mortar costs. So for their busing and all their brick and mortar costs. And so we get between 70 to 75%
of what the state would give the local school district.
Of their per pupil allotment.
Of their per pupil allotment. Okay.
So and then that's the funding that we get per child. So it varies because there's different, Upper Merion has one rate, and other districts have, the districts have different rates.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about one of the things that I hear an awful lot about is the expenses, the school district versus the cyber.
I'm ready to talk about that.
Yeah, we want to get what your expenses are. All right, we're talking about cyber charter schools with the board president of Agora Cyber Charter School. I'll get that all out, and we'll be back in a moment. Good.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
Welcome back with Mary Steffey. We're talking about cyber charter schools, how they operate, what kind of programs they run, and you wanted to add a point that we were talking about tuition, correct? Go ahead with that.
Cyber charter schools are tuition-free because they are a public school in Pennsylvania. So it is a tuition-free option for parents.
Okay, let's then go to the segment of the young population that you serve.
Well, we're a K-12 school, and we serve kids from we serve the advanced learners all the way to kids with special needs. 23% of our kids are special needs kids. So the special needs population is coming to us in droves because we do special ed very, very well, and it's an opportunity for kids with special needs to learn in a different environment. We have kids that are, as I said, advanced learners. We have kids that graduate early. We have kids that, and for some kids, we're a second chance at a diploma. Mm-hmm. We take kids. Our goal is to help kids to be successful. And one of our coolest statistics that I would like to share with you is we are the size of the 19th largest district in the state. The 19th largest district in the state, but we graduate as many kids as the 6th largest district in the state. So we are working very hard to get kids what they need to be successul in life.
Yeah, let's go back to money. Let's talk a little. Let's talk a little bit.
It all goes back to money.
Somehow it all goes. So you get an allotment. You get a per pupil allotment from the state, right?
Yeah, well, from the districts. We actually get it from the districts.
From the district. The district gets it from the state and from their own property tax. Okay, so we got that. So let's now go to the costs that you incur in operating your programs.
Our costs are different. They're not necessarily less. So, for example, as I said, every student has a laptop. Every family has internet. Every family has a printer, all provided by the school. So last year, our internet expenses were $3.2 million. Our technology, as we all know, technology is very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. And in order to stay cutting edge, because we really are the laboratory schools of the future, we're the direction. Colleges are going this way. But as we all know, technology is probably the most expensive thing that there is. Our technology expenses were $8.6 million last year. So, brick and mortars always want to say, well, they have no building. And trust me, we have expenses, just different expenses. We have a role that's very different from a regular school. We have a family coach that goes out into the home, helps the kids. Are you set up? Do you have everything you need? How can we help you to be ready to work with school? Every student has an individual learning plan, and we work very hard to help them to meet their goals and to work with their families to meet the goals. So
we have a little less than a minute left. So you're also caught up then in the budget battle that we just talked about earlier.
Yes, we are.
And that is this a fact that if it doesn't get done in a more timely fashion, does this ultimately affect you?
It affects, some of the schools are also paid through Unipay, which if a district doesn't pay us, then we also get paid through the state. So we are going to have a problem. Okay. We also have an issue with, they want to cut funding to cyber schools.
All right, thanks for the update. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.